The gavel hadn't even been raised by the judge, and already the courtroom was gasping. Stress hung around the air like a heavy mist, choking all who were inside. Cameras blazed incessantly outside, reporters and onlookers pushing to document everything as the Brown family made their way into the building where their fate would be decided. For so long, the Browns had stood before the world as eccentric trailblazers, sister wives following their own conception of family and love. But today, no cameras, no obligatory smiles. Today, there was only a shattered family before the unforgiving light of the law. So how did the once united Browns become so broken? Let's dive in. Christine arrived first. Her chin came up with courage, but the tension in her jaw betrayed the weight she carried. She did not even glance at Cody. Beside her, Janelle stepped forward with the weariness of a mother stretched too thin. Lack of sleep nights, constant worries for her children, and now this. And then there was Mary, moving almost as a ghost. For years she had lived in half-desiring, half-abandonment. And now her quiet standing with the other two said more than any words. For the first time in years, the three women were not co-wives, ladies. Seated opposite them was Cody, once charming, now bitter. His golden curls no longer springing with charm, his posture tense with resentment. His fists squeezed harder with every look cast in his direction. Beside him stood Robin, clinging to him with a hold that resembled desperation rather than devotion. Her gaze followed the women down the aisle, her eyes holding an unspoken truth. She was more to blame for this disintegration than the rest. The judge entered, ordering silence. The room obeyed, but the tension would not cease. Christine's lawyer began. Your Honor, this is not a divorce case. This is a case of manipulation, betrayal, and abuse that lasts for years. His voice sliced through the room, and for Christine, it hit like a hammer. She lowered her head, struggling to control her breathing. Janelle leaned over, giving a silent display of encouragement. Cody's gaze burned into Christine. His attorney whispered urgently in his ear, but Cody's gaze did not shift from hers. This was all her fault, he thought, her insubordination that had started the spark that now threatened to consume them all. Robin sat frozen, mouth closed. She had been scolded for years as the instigator of tension among the wives, but here, with the court's glare on them, she could not dispute that she had not been a cause of Cody's favoritism. And once the money trail was uncovered, the entire courtroom shifted. The books told 1,000 words, maxed out credit cards, vanished savings, and money funneled into one home, Robin's. Christine rigidly sat with her fists balled as the proof grew. All those years of self-denial ruined by selfish choices. Then came Janelle's testimony. Her voice shook at first, but grew steadier with every sentence. We trusted him. I built a house myself, 2 hands, invested everything for my children's future, and then I found that it was all lost, funneled so that one family could thrive, and the rest of us were struggling to breathe. Cody lost it. He slammed his fist on the table, screaming, "That's a lie. I did everything for this family." The judge's gavel came down decisively, silencing him. Reporters scribbled frantically, cameras clicked. Cody's carefully polished image was unraveling with every outburst. Mary, heretofore quiet, finally spoke. She had a soft but deadly tone. I remained because of hope. Hope that someday he would see me again. But hope is nothing when trust is lost. The quiet was stifling. Even the judge glanced up, obviously disturbed by her confession. Cody refused to glance at her. Robin searched his face for confirmation, but he provided none. Christine at last turned to Cody, not in rage, but in determined calm. Years of being battered had made her no longer need to wrestle with words. A silence would suffice. The judge called for a recess, but the damage had been done. The Browns, a once paraded perfect example of faith and solidarity, now sat split in two, their truth spilling out into the public. Cameras stationed outside would weave their own narrative, But within this courtroom today, one thing was certain. This wasn't about family. This was about survival. When Christine, Janelle, and Mary stood together, collecting their papers, they walked side by side, not rivals, but to be feared. Down the aisle, Cody had his head bowed, hands in his hair, Robin's grip precarious in his. For all his bluster, for the first time, he was in someone's mercy. And this was just day one. Day two was set to be even more explosive. The opening arguments had already gone viral, spread through headlines, podcasts, and fan sites. The world was watching, and the Browns' truth could no longer be kept secret. The previous day's hearing had been contentious, but today the courthouse was jammed. Each bench filled, every aisle shoulder to shoulder with reporters, cameras clicking away. Fans crowded the sidewalk outside, holding signs, some promoting Christine, Janelle, and Mary, others demanding answers from Cody and Robin. The tightly manicured Sister Wives brand that had been broadcast on television was shattered. What was left was gritty, unglamorized reality, and it was unfolding for the entire world to witness. And today, on this day, the evidence was going to be deafening. The judge hesitated for a moment. "We will hear testimony of witnesses," he stated, his gaze cutting to Cody for a moment, who had nearly lost it the day before. Christine's attorney stood and produced her first witness, a financial auditor hired to go through the Browns' accounts. The man placed a fat stack of papers before him. Wrestling up his spectacles, he began. "Our audit uncovered a clear pattern of financial misconduct. Family funds were siphoned off, assets disposed of without authorization, debts hidden." He unfolded the first page. For example, property earmarked for the use of all wives was sold. Nearly $200,000 in proceeds were paid into a joint account in the name of Mr. Brown alone and Mrs. Robin Brown alone. None of it was distributed to the other wives. The room gasped collectively. Christine shut her eyes hard, fists clenched. Janelle trembled as she fought to keep her cool. Mary stayed rigid, her silence cutting more deeply than anything she could have uttered. Down the aisle, Cody's face went beet red. "That's not true," he yelled into the microphone, but the auditor didn't even flinch. "Every figure accounted for, every transaction traceable. These are facts, not opinions." He continued, bringing out receipts of upscale spending, spa treatments, designer shopping, high-end vacations, all connected to Robin's family. And then the dagger. Christine's lawyer spoke to the jury. Meanwhile, Christine fought to provide for her children. Meanwhile, Janelle sold personal belongings just to get by. Mr. Brown and Mrs. Robin Brown went on vacation luxury style. This double standard didn't just break hearts, it broke bank accounts. Robin snapped back. Her voice trembling, she shouted, "That's a lie! They were for the show! TLC reimbursed us! You don't understand how this works!" The judge's gavel fell. "Mrs. Brown, you will be silent unless you are called as a witness." Robin scooted back into her seat, sobbing down her face, gripping Cody's arm even tighter. The actual storm, however, was only beginning. Christine herself was called to the stand. She rose slowly, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Her voice on TV once had been soft, bright, eager to keep everything in order. Now it carried the weight of all that was unsaid. When I married Cody, I had a dream, a family of equals built together. But what I received was a nightmare. I lived in solitude with my children while I watched every resource go into one home. My kids would ask me why they did not have enough, why they could not have something the other kids had. How do you explain to a child that their daddy chose one family above all the rest? The courtroom was spellbound. Even skeptics leaned forward, captivated by her strong, anguished voice. She continued, "I begged him to meet with us, to meet his children. Every conversation was concluded in blame. He blamed me for betrayal, for jealousy. Maybe I was jealous, but not of Robin. I was jealous of equality, of love, of respect. Things we all deserved, but never received. And when I did leave at last, I believed it was over. But I found out about the fraud, the money, the property. That's when I realized this wasn't emotional abandonment. This was betrayal every way the term can be described. When Christine quit, her shoulders stood higher, her morale unshaken. It wasn't bitterness in her voice, it was survival. And then came Janelle. Her evidence, unlike Christine's emotive one, was orderly, methodical, merciless in its precision. She came with spreadsheets, graphs, and records. "I managed the household finances for years," she said calmly. "I knew where the money needed to go, but whenever I asked Cody questions about discrepancies, he would shoo me away, saying that I didn't get the big picture. Well, here is the big picture. Thousands and thousands of dollars disappearing over and over again. And today, we know precisely where the money went." Her plain recitation was nearly more accusatory than Christine's passion. She wasn't speculating, she was illustrating. When she finished, Cody was quivering with rage. He sprang to his feet, his voice trembling, not with sorrow, but anger. "Your Honor," he snarled, "those women are lying to the world. I loved them. I sacrificed everything to this family. Yes, I made mistakes, but they cheated me. They left. They destroyed this family, not me. Christine poisoned them against me. She wanted to leave, and now she's taking everybody with her. This isn't about money, it's revenge." The word hung in the air. Reporters furiously wrote, headlines already being formed. "Cody claims revenge." The judge tapped the gavel until silence reigned once more. But Christine didn't flinch. She looked directly at Cody and breathed into his ear, loud enough for anyone in the courtroom to hear. "This isn't revenge, Cody. This is the truth." The silence that followed was thicker than any argument yelling could ever possibly be. The judge ordered a recess, and when he left the room, chaos erupted. Reporters clustered, shutters snapped, voices encircled the chamber. The crowd gathered outside waiting to hear news. The facade of the perfect Brown family had crumbled. Something raw, painful, and unavoidable remained. And far from being over, this trial was only just beginning. The Brown family was not broken, it was shattered. What had once feigned to be a loving home was now a battleground of lies, deception, and shattered trust, exposed before the world. And all of those people in the courtroom knew this was only the beginning. The 20-minute recess accomplished nothing to relax the tension. Rather, the atmosphere grew heavy with tension, a storm building. Cody fumed with his lawyer, jaw clenched, eyes flitting to Christine, Janelle, and Mary. Robin sat rigid and white next to him, her tear-stained face hidden in a strip of tissue ripped from her hand. The three women sat shoulder to shoulder opposite them. Words were unnecessary, their unspoken solidarity stronger than any declaration. When the judge came back, his gavel rang out over the bench. "Court's back in session. We're going to go ahead with the introduction of evidence." His voice was cold but authoritative. And then, the secrets started flashing on the screen for everyone to see. Christine's attorney called up property deeds, transfer papers, and bank statements. Item number 1, the Arizona property. "This house," he said, "was jointly mortgaged by the four wives. It was sold for nearly $400,000. Instead of dividing the proceeds as had been agreed, every last penny went into Mr. Brown's separate account. Months afterward, that money was used as a down payment on a new house for Mr. Brown and Mrs. Robin Brown alone." Gasp after gasp swept through the gallery. Pencils of journalists scribbled nervously. Janelle squeezed shut her eyes, her head jerking in grim assent to something she had feared for so long. Christine pressed her lips together tightly until they throbbed close to bleeding. Mary ground her teeth so hard that her knuckles whitened. The judge whirled savagely. "Mr. Brown, is this proper?" Cody leapt to his feet, words trembling with rage. "Yes, I did sell it. Yes, I bought a house for Robin and me, but I did it for the family. The others fought me at every step. Robin wanted to get on. I did what had to be done. Christine's attorney leapt on this. So you acknowledge, under oath, that you omitted the other wives, that you went back on your word and favoured one wife over the others? Cody blushed. I did what was best for us. Best for you, Mr. Brown, the attorney retorted, his voice echoing through the room. Not for them. Christine's voice broke through, warped with anguish. Do you even hear yourself, Cody? This never was our family. It was always yours, and Robin's. Robin's tears fell once more. That is not true. You are twisting everything. We all made choices. You left. Don't blame us for your failures. The judge's gavel came down. One more interruption and this court will be dismissed. But the damage was already etched deep. And then there was the bombshell, a secret savings account. Over $120,000 quietly went into an account in Cody and Robin's name. Cash pulled straight out of TLC show profits. None of the other wives ever saw a dime. Janelle sat bolt upright, seething with anger. I helped work on the show income statements. We agreed it would be split down the middle. Cody, how could you? His temper flared. You don't understand. Robin's kids needed protection. I was protecting them. Her voice cracked. Protecting them? You have any idea how many nights I stayed awake wondering how I was going to pay bills? How many times my kids asked why Daddy didn't come see them? You gave it all to Robin's kids and left mine in thin air. The room gasped. Mary's eyes welled with tears, but once more her silence pierced deepest. And then there was the final dagger. Text messages. Words Cody had sent to Robin. We can't let them know yet. Christine and Janelle will turn on us if they do. Stay quiet until it is safe. The courtroom fell silent. Christine covered her mouth with her hand. Janelle dropped her gaze, her face pale. Mary did finally say, in an empty but biting voice, So it was never about us. We were just in the way. Robin cried out. That's not what he said. He was afraid. You're taking everything out of context. But nothing could take away the black and white proof. Cody thrashed, voice cracking. I was fighting for my marriage. You all abandoned me. Christine poisoned everyone. Janelle never respected me. Mary checked out years ago. What was I supposed to do? Robin remained. She was loyal. The gavel came down. Mr. Brown, settle down or you'll be in contempt. But Cody's act was disintegrating. He snarled to himself, shaking. They wanted me to fail. They all turned against me. Christine cut in first, her voice tough, cutting through the din. He's not fighting for us. He's fighting to dominate. Her attorney summed up with a frightening final flourish. Your Honour, this is not favoritism. This is betrayal, financial deceit, emotional manipulation. These women were lied to, their children left behind, their lives stolen. This was not marriage, it was manipulation, and it will have consequences. The judge's face was expressionless, but he nodded firmly. Court adjourned. As soon as the gavel fell, chaos erupted. Reporters hurried toward the doors, headlines already in progress. Secret accounts exposed. Cody betrays wives for Robin. Cameras clicked as Cody, face red with rage, marched out, dragging Robin by the arm. Christine, Janelle, and Mary were left standing. Not rivals, not co-wives, but sisters born of survival, brought together after years apart. By day 2, the trial had moved from intimate sorrow to national obsession. Betrayal, hidden bank accounts, public meltdowns. This was no longer a family feud. It had become a cultural phenomenon, and the world couldn't look away. The family that once stood as a beacon for oneness was now unrecognizable. Once a home, it was now a battleground, shattered by lies, betrayal, and shattered trust. The world wasn't watching. It was witnessing the collapse of something far more significant than a marriage. And within, everyone was aware. This was merely the beginning. The recess brought no relief. If anything, tension thickened, hovering in the courtroom like a storm waiting to break. Cody leaned forward over his attorney, jaw set, eyes darting nervously in the direction of Christine, Janelle, and Mary. Robin sat beside him, face smeared with tears, clinging to a tissue until it fell apart in her hands. Across the room, the other three wives sat in quietude, in silence, yet their togetherness was wordless yet unbreakable. When the judge returned, his gavel rang down on the wood. The courtroom was restored to order, but quiet was stifling. Christine's attorney stood up, his voice hard and unyielding. "Your Honour, we present proof of secret accounts and property transfers, a thread of deception that reflects a pattern of deceit." All eyes were on the screen as deeds, bank accounts, and transfers lit up the courtroom wall. The bombshell, a house in Arizona originally mortgaged by all four wives, had been sold. Nearly $400,000 vanished into Cody's personal account, resurfacing as a down payment on a new home. A home with just Robin. The gallery erupted in gasps. Janelle's eyes clenched shut, confirming what she had suspected for so long. Christine bit down on her lip until it turned red with blood. Mary sat rigid, her teeth clenched in repression of the secret she had guarded for years. The judge's voice interrupted. "Mr. Brown, is that correct?" Cody rose to his feet, his own voice shaking with anger and desperation. "Yes, I sold the house. Yes, I bought a house with Robin. But I did it all for the family, wouldn't work with me. I did what I had to do." Christine's attorney interrupted. "So you're admitting one wife treated special, the others cast aside?" Cody flushed. "I did what was best." Retort came swiftly. "Best for you, Mr. Brown, not for them." Christine could no longer hold herself back. Her voice pierced the silence. "Family, it was never ours. It was always yours. Yours and Robin's." Robin's tears started again, her voice cracking. "That is not true. You all left him behind. Don't pervert it." The gavel came down. Order! But the damage was done. And then came the bombshell of hidden savings accounts. Christine's lawyer revealed deposits of over $120,000 in Cody and Robin's names, funds withdrawn directly out of profits from the TLC shows. Janelle stood up, shaking with fury. "I handled the finances of the show. We had a deal. Everything was to be divided 50-50. Cody, how could you?" His anger burst out. "Robin's children had to be protected. I was standing up for them." Janelle's voice broke. "And mine. My babies stayed up nights wondering why their daddy never returned home. You stole from us for them and left mine to feel unnoticed." Gasps swept the room. Christine's attorney wasn't finished. He read out loud damning text messages. "We can't let them know yet. Christine and Janelle will turn against us if they find out." The words poisoned the air. Christine covered her mouth with her hand, shivering. Janelle turned as pale as a ghost. And then Mary finally spoke. Her voice was hollow, but it was like glass slicing. "So it was never about us. We were just in the way." The courtroom erupted into chaos. Robin cried uncontrollably, saying the messages were taken out of context. Cody shouted, his mask breaking. "I fought for this family. You people left me behind. Christine left. Janelle disrespected me. Mary tuned out years ago. Robin stayed. She was loyal." The judge struck his gavel again, warning Cody to stop. But the cracks in his defense were there for all to see. Christine spoke to her attorney in a whisper, the mic catching her words. "He is not battling us. He is battling for control." The attorney glared at the court, the voice packed with finality. This was not a marriage. It was a pretense. It was manipulation. It was betrayal of wives and children both. And today, truth must have consequences. The judge's face was unreadable, but the gavel came down. Court adjourned. The room erupted. Reporters rushed to pen their headlines. "Secret accounts exposed. Cody betrays wives." Cameras flashed. Cody erupted from the building, with Robin in tow by the hand, while Christine, Janelle, and Mary stayed behind, bound not by polygamy, but by betrayal. For years they'd been set against one another, but now they were sisters in survival. By the next morning, the courthouse was a scene. News vans parked outside, cameras sweeping in every anguished arrival, every hushed whisper. What began as a family trial was now a saga that engulfed the nation. Secret funds, betrayal exposed, wives united, and Cody Brown cornered. Inside, the air was thick. The wives were seated tight and unmoving, once enemies, now survivors seeking justice. Cody sat across from them, rigid in his tailor-made suit, his lawyer on his side, Robin holding on for dear life. His face was calm, but his eyes told a story of a man fighting not to break. The defense had begun. Cody's lawyer framed him not as an adulterer, but as a tormented man trying to preserve a struggling family. "Today, you will hear from Mr. Brown himself," he declared. Cody slumped forward, his hands clasped around the mic. His voice trembled, then steadied. "I loved those women. I did everything I could to give them everything, but nothing ever seemed to satisfy them. Every scheme fell apart, every ideal destroyed. And when I met someone who believed in me, Robin, I held on to her. But his wives were not deceived. Christine said he had mixed up obedience with loyalty. Janelle recalled to mind that leadership demanded sacrifices from everyone, not from one person. And Mary, speaking in a low but biting tone, reminded him that he had deserted them long ago before they deserted him. The courtroom shifted, the weight of their words choking his defense. Cody shouted, "I was fighting to live. I was holding on to the last trace of love that I had." The oppressive silence that followed filled the room. Even the reporters halted for the first time. His words were hard, human, desperate, but the evidence against him remained. The voice of the judge cut it back to order. "This court does not do business in love. It does business in law. Responsibility cannot be waived on grounds of emotion." The gavel came down on that. Cody hung his head forward, pale and defeated. Robin reached out to touch his arm, but he didn't budge. In the corner of the room, Christine, Janelle, and Mary stood up at once, silent, unyielding. Tomorrow the jury would deliver the verdict, undefined. Would Cody's appeal for love redeem him, or would justice at last overtake him? Exposed, control, manipulation, betrayal, exposed to the entire world. The courtroom was still, as though even the walls held their breath in anticipation. Sobs of confession, bitter recriminations, and damning proof had filled the air for days. But now they all knew, this was not just a choice. This was history revised, a family's legacy changed forever, with millions watching. The judge prodded his glasses higher, his eyes scanning the room with careful slowness. His words dropped like shards of slow-moving rain. "This court has heard all the testimonies, all the documents, all the accounts. We have heard accusation and defense. Judgment will now be rendered." At the plaintiff's table, Christine's knuckles were white and fisted tight in the wood. Janelle grasped her necklace like it was all that stood between her and falling. Mary trembled, face bowed. Cody sat rigid on the opposite side of the room, missing the final whisper from his attorney. Beside him, Robin's wide eyes shone with fear, clenched fists and white hands in her lap. The room teetered on the brink of revelation. The judge's voice interrupted. "Mr. Brown, you objected that your actions were acts of survival and of love. But obligation will not be justified by love. Survival for an individual will not excuse harming another. The record is clear. Money and property were diverted for the sake of benefiting you and one wife, while the others and the children were sacrificed." Cody's lips drew together in a thin line, his shoulders heaving, but he was silent. The judge spoke to Christine, to Janelle, to Mary. "Your testimony has been consistent and is supported by the evidence. This court rules in your favor." The gallery burst apart. Gasps ran along the room as journalists ran, pens slashing across notebooks, cameras firing like shots. Christine's face crumpled into tears of relief. Janelle gave a small, quivering breath, her eyes finally released from doubt. Mary clapped shaking hands over mouth, a long-held sob at last escaping. The judge raised his hand for silence. Mr. Brown, the court rules that your actions were acts of financial manipulation and breach of marital trust. You are hereby instructed to forfeit $750,000 in assets, shared equally among the plaintiffs. Additionally, other family funds will be handled by an independent trustee to promote fairness in the future. The choice came like a lightning bolt. Cody slammed his fist on the table, his rage breaking his voice. That is not fair. That money was for us, a future, for the family's security. You don't understand. The judge's glare was icy. Mr. Brown, your definition of security was pure favoritism and cover-up. You speak of family, and you only ever protected yourself. This was not leadership. It was love pretending to be manipulation, and this court will not stand for it. Cody's face twisted with agony, shoulders crumpling under the weight of irreversibility. Robin leaned toward him, breathing frantically, but he barely appeared to be hearing. The empire that he thought he had conquered was dissolving in the instant. Christine stood tall, her voice steady in the face of her trembling. Your Honor, thank you. It was never ever about money. It was about dignity, about being heard. For years, our wounds were not seen, kept hidden behind cameras. Today, finally, they have been seen. Janelle's voice followed, strong. This is not revenge. It is justice. For us, for our children, for every broken promise in the name of unity. And finally, Mary whispered, her voice faint but piercing. Maybe now we can begin to heal. The judge nodded solemnly. Healing begins with truth, and today truth has been spoken. His gavel fell once more. The sound was final, irreversible. The courtroom exploded into chaos. Reporters surged forward, microphones poked in every direction. Christine, are you satisfied with the verdict? Janelle, will Cody cooperate? Mary, what's next for you? The women had nothing to say. Instead, shoulder to shoulder, hands clasped, together as survivors and not as rivals, they walked out for the first time in years. The photographers captured the photo, a photograph that would dominate the headlines come dawn, sister wives victorious. Cody Brown foiled in court. By the defense table, Cody stood rigid, his lawyer handing papers back and forth without looking at him. Robin sat silently weeping over a tissue, her world crashing down with his. Finally, Cody snarled, broken, I gave them everything, and it still wasn't enough. But Christine's words were truer, even than his denial. You never walked with us, Cody. You trod upon us. Outside, the TLC cameras captured what was left behind. Anger, weeping, silence. Each glance, each word would be taken by the world for months to come. But what was real was simple. The wives had regained their voices. The court had upheld their pain. And the family that had once lived as a fantasy of polygamy was over, supplanted by a documentation of betrayal, sealed in perpetuity with the ring of a gavel.